You might not know, but Queen Elizabeth was never supposed to be queen. Let's talk a little bit more about the history right now. Joining us is Rory Rapple, Associate History Professor from the University of Notre Dame. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. Queen Elizabeth's father. Hi, good. King George was the second son. What happened with his older brother, King Edward?
Well, Edward, of course, met Wallis Simpson and fell in love with her, and famously, because she was a divorcee, American divorcee, he wasn't able to retain the crown and marry her, and he famously, abdicated publicly, and made a public announcement of his abdication, which was quite an awkward thing at the time because of the legislation, Commonwealth legislation at the time. They had to get the consent of all the dominions as well to allow him to abdicate, which is something that's, I think, often forgotten. And then he abdicated. And then, of course, George VI took the throne, memorably played by Colin Firth in The King's Speech, an Oscar-winning film. And he became, in a sense, the wartime king, monarch of the United Kingdom. And Elizabeth, of course, was his eldest child. And if she had had a younger brother, Elizabeth wouldn't have acceded to the throne either. I mean, a younger brother would have taken precedence over her because of the preference for a male heir. That has been changed now through legislation. But actually, what we do know, I think, is that we will not live, any of us, under an English queen in our lifetimes ever again. Because you have the succession, which is quite clearly there between Charles III, William, who will be William V, if he retains his name as his regnal name, and then George.
Right. And we can see that 3 generations there will be ruled by kings. Do you think that the world has changed its idea of the monarchy? Obviously, there has been a lot of criticism directed to the royal family, whether it's by how much money they have, how many taxes they pay, what their significance is to leadership and governance in the UK, and even just their lives, just heavily scrutinized. But do you believe that with Queen Elizabeth, there has been a change, especially now that people have inquired about her life and have studied her life and are learning more about who she was at a deeper level?
Yeah, I think very much so. There's lots of European monarchs. There's lots of European royal families. Scandinavian royal families, the Danish royal family in particular, for instance. And they have tended to, and actually the Dutch royal family as well, but they've tended to scale down things to what one might call a much more nuclear family. So the reach of publicity is much narrower than it would be for the British royal family. But again, it has to be said that all this pomp and circumstance that you see today is actually of quite a recent provenance. I mean, the British royal family wouldn't have been seen as particularly good on ceremony, I think, up until the late 19th century, early 20th century. And I mean, this wonderful ceremony that you see here, which is totally eye-catching and totally strange for so many, is actually something that in historical terms is really quite recent.
For you, Rory, when you think about King Charles III,
yes,
formerly Prince Charles, do you think that he will actually become a little less talkative about his opinion regarding politics?
Yeah, I think he will, but I in general he will, but in particular I think he will let certain things slip. He's already in some instances made his opinions known. For instance, not explicitly, but sort of implicitly, in while he was visiting Belfast it was clear that he was particularly sort of sent a message about the politics of the north of Ireland, for instance, in a particular way, endorsing in some respects, the secessionist party there, and the fact that they've acknowledging that they have the majority of seats in the Northern Irish Assembly. So he will, of course, be somebody who might let slip on occasions his real opinions.
And for the rest of the world, do you think that this is something where people will receive him? Clearly, they received his mother. I mean, he is the one on the throne now. But in terms of an openness, historically, when there is a changing of the leader, what typically happens? I mean, it's not an easy transition to make.
No, not at all. And especially if, as has been said already, is that so many people only have known Elizabeth II as a Queen of England. I mean, one of the things that people will find particularly strange in the future is that the next time that new currency is issued, rather than having the face of Elizabeth II on it, you will have the face of Charles III. And that's something that will be particularly strange for people to see.
Particularly strange.
They will be used to seeing Elizabeth II on their stamps, on their currency, and all those things. And while the currency with her face on it obviously will not be taken out of circulation or anything like that, any new notes that are issued will have Charles III's image on them. And that would be the case also for those in the Commonwealth realm, those dominions, etc., that recognise him as head of state. So that'll be, that it will actually hit people's pockets on a day-to-day basis, insofar as they operate in a cash economy. You know, that they'll see Charles III as they make transactions, as they buy their coffee, etc.
Yes, and that will be a way to perhaps help them adjust in this time of transition for the UK and for the rest of the Commonwealth, but at the same time, getting used to this change. Change is imminent.
Yes, no, it'll be very strange for people, I think it will be. And also the fact that it's female monarchy is experienced in a very different way from male monarchy. I think there's obviously a much more maternal sort of atmosphere, I think, by female monarchy. People identified with Elizabeth II as a sort of a grandmother figure, I think, and certainly since the 1990s in any case. And with Charles, he's possibly going to be identified more as something like an uncle, if you know. And I suppose people have a different attitude towards their uncles often than they have towards their grandparents or grandmother.
Yes, absolutely. And I think even President Biden referred to the Queen as reminding him of his grandmother. Thank you, Rory Rapple, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.